Man, my parents are absolute dictators. Making me take out the trash while the Wi-Fi is lagging this badly? I am completely oppressed. Let's dial it back a bit. If you want to talk about actual oppression, we need to look at the Russian Empire in 1914. At the time, about 85% of the population earned their living from agriculture. They were peasant farmers, tied to the land, and struggling to survive in extreme poverty. For the people who moved to the cities for industrial jobs, conditions were brutal. Workers faced 15-hour shifts in dangerous, unregulated factories. Afterward, they went home to sleep in crowded, unsanitary dormitories, where families couldn't even stay together. At the top of this whole system was Tsar Nicholas II. He ruled as an autocrat, meaning he held absolute, unchecked power over the entire empire. When the public asked for better conditions, he refused to listen or share any authority. You have a wealthy elite living in luxury, completely disconnected from millions of overworked, starving citizens. That massive gap created a highly volatile environment. The workers had reached a breaking point, where quitting the entire system looked like the only option left. To figure out how to break that system, the working class turned to a new political idea spreading across Europe: socialism. Specifically, they were reading the theories of a philosopher named Karl Marx. In this model, Marx argued capitalist factory owners extract all profit generated entirely by the workers' physical labor. To fix this imbalance, Marx believed workers must overthrow private property and take control of the factories themselves. Those ideas boiled over in 1905. Over 110,000 exhausted industrial workers in St. Petersburg went on strike. They organized a peaceful march toward the Tsar's Winter Palace, simply asking for a reduction to an 8-hour workday and an increase in basic wages. But instead of negotiating, the Tsar ordered his police and military to open fire on the unarmed crowd. Hundreds of workers were killed or wounded in the snow. That massacre became known as Bloody Sunday. That violence permanently broke whatever trust the public had left in the monarchy. The people protesting for shorter hours realized that peaceful requests would be met with bullets. They began organizing into underground political parties, preparing to take the government by force. The situation rapidly deteriorated a few years later when Russia entered the First World War. The fighting on the Eastern Front resulted in millions of casualties. The massive military effort drained the country's grain and fuel supplies, leaving the civilian population starving. By February 1917, the entire state apparatus collapsed. Starving workers flooded the streets, and this time, the soldiers refused to shoot them. They joined the protests instead. Together, they formed local governing councils called Soviets and forced the Tsar to step down. The interim government that took over tried to introduce slow, moderate changes, but the exhausted public created the perfect opening for Vladimir Lenin. Leading a socialist faction called the Bolsheviks, he returned from exile with a strict plan known as the April Theses. Lenin demanded 3 immediate actions: pull Russia out of the war, transfer all noble-owned land directly to the peasants, and hand absolute power over to the local worker Soviets. In October of that same year, Lenin's faction made their final move. Armed Bolshevik supporters took over key government buildings in the capital. Within weeks, they had claimed ownership of the country's banks and massive industrial factories. While moderate politicians debated laws, the Bolsheviks offered the working class immediate, aggressive action. By seizing physical control of the infrastructure, they effectively deleted the old Russian Empire and installed their own system. Dismantling a government is much easier than actually running one. The Bolshevik takeover didn't lead to immediate peace. It triggered a massive, violent civil war across the country. On this map, the Bolshevik Reds control the center, surrounded by pro-Tsarist whites and rival socialist greens. Foreign powers quickly intervened. These arrows show US, British, French, and Japanese forces pushing in to back the whites, terrified that socialist ideology would spread globally. Despite facing attacks from all sides, the Reds emerged victorious by 1920. They maintained strict discipline over their forces and leveraged their control of the central cities to defeat the divided opposition, securing the territory that would soon become the Soviet Union. Okay, fair point. When millions of people are starving, freezing, and overthrowing an absolute monarch just to get an 8-hour workday, my router lagging during a game doesn't exactly count as oppression. Exactly. The events in Russia proved that even the most entrenched power structures can be dismantled when the working class reaches its breaking point. If you want to learn more about the history that shaped the modern world, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video.